Part 43. The legitimate daughter of the prosperous medical fragrance will not marry. Author, Jinchi. Chapter 421. Chapter 421 The sudden bolt from the blue, concubine Yu. The reply from the main city was actually very simple. It just said that the medicinal material of heart-eating mushroom has not been found in the main city. However, after all, it was a matter that the emperor personally told, and the people below did not dare to deal with it carelessly. As a result, after careful investigation, it was found that a new drugstore had purchased the medicinal material of heart erosion mushroom as early as 2 months ago. Now that it is the new year, all the pharmacies have cut off the source of heart erosion mushroom. It is said that the new shop has a monopoly on all the heart-eating mushrooms in the main city. The person working below originally wanted to check the owner of this pharmacy, so that it would be easier to talk. As a result of another check, this drugstore actually belongs to the Yu family. Thinking of concubine Yu, who had always been favored by the emperor, the people in the main city hurriedly sent news to the emperor. In normal times, Emperor Yongchang would not have been so angry about this matter. Perhaps even Iwajiwa's praise is a bit pleasing to the imperial concubine. But Emperor Yongchang would never forget that Fan Qingjiao's Qingnangzai had just been burned down. Qingnangzai was burned down, and the Yu family secretly opened a medicine shop, and even monopolized the heart-eating mushrooms used to treat the Prince of Jinai Kingdom in advance. What is this going to do? Emperor Yongchang naturally thought of Yuning, who had been taking care of the Prince of Jinai Kingdom these days. Emperor Yongchang even knew that Yuning was close to concubine Yu. In this case, there is something else that Emperor Yongchang does not understand. Concubine Yu, who had no idea, was still wondering why the emperor was thinking of her at this time. As a result, when she saw the emperor's cloudy face, her heart skipped a beat. Results. Before concubine Yu could ask, Emperor Yongchang directly told her about the Yu family pharmacy and the heart-eating mushroom. Concubine Yu. The feeling of being struck by 5 thunders is nothing more than this. During this period, Yuning also secretly learned a lot about the illness of the Prince of Jinai Kingdom. Concubine Yu originally thought that if she could find an opportunity for Yuning to cure the illness of the Crown Prince of Jinai Kingdom, this honor would naturally not go to Fan Qingjiao. Of course, concubine Yu would never let Yuning show her medical skills openly. Today's Yuning was once a low-level servant in the Queen's palace. If such a person was known by the emperor to have superb medical skills, wouldn't he be suspected by the emperor? Concubine Yu was thinking about this and secretly asked Yuning to treat the Prince of Jinai little by little. It is precisely this way that concubine Yu quietly opened a medicine shop in the main city with the help of her family. It is naturally in accordance with Yuning's requirements, and all of them are stocked with medicinal materials for treating the Prince of Jinai Kingdom. Now that Fan Qingjiao was intercepting Hu, concubine Yu was thinking about how to deal with the drugstore without knowing it. Unexpectedly, the emperor found the door. Faced with the emperor's doubts, concubine Yu naturally would not admit it. It's just that the people in the family wanted to do some small business. If the emperor hadn't told me, I would not have thought of such a coincidence. The emperor's doubts are always just doubts. As long as there is no evidence, the emperor can only speculate on her instead of convicting her. Of course, Emperor Yongchang knew that sending people to investigate, even if something was really found, would hurt the harmony between the couple. Moreover, the heart-eating mushroom is the main event now. As long as you find what you are looking for, there is no need to delve into the rest. Just thinking about concubine Yu secretly reaching out, Emperor Yongchang still felt uncomfortable. After a while, he finally said, "Since it's a coincidence, let's just let it happen. It just so happens that the princess place lacks the medicinal material of heart-eating mushroom. If the Crown Prince of Jinai Kingdom sees a doctor, it must be fully supported by the Yu family's shop. Concubine Yu. It's just that if you are unlucky enough to fart and hit your heel. The good-looking shop was not used in the place it should be used, which made concubine Yu angry. Now before the transfer, Emperor Yongchang directly helped digest it. How could concubine Yu not hold her breath? I'm just so angry. Just looking at the emperor's stormy face, concubine Yu didn't say anything and nodded in agreement. But this matter, no matter how concubine Yu thinks about it, she always feels something is wrong. I always felt that the emperor was deliberately looking for trouble and sincerely wanted to punish her. Concubine Yu thought carefully, even if the emperor really found out that she secretly wanted to treat the prince of Genii kingdom, there would be no need to go into such a big fight. After all, this matter is difficult to say because she has a long hand, but to put it nicely, she is sharing your worries. The more she thought about it, the more uneasy she became. Concubine Yu left the palace and said to Aunt Ying, who was supporting her, "Go and send someone to deliver a message to the people in the main city to find out what happened there. Today's events are so strange no matter how you look at them." It's natural for concubine Yu to feel strange. She was originally plotted by Fan Qinjiao to take advantage of her. Concubine Yu had no intention of letting Yuning serve the prince of Genii kingdom. Fan Qinjiao knew that concubine Yu wanted to secretly cure the heart disease of the prince of Genii kingdom. Since you want to cure a disease, you need medicine. The most convenient thing is to open your own pharmacy. So Fan Qinjiao went to complain to Emperor Yongchang today in order to ask the emperor to send people to the main city to investigate. It is guaranteed to be accurate after one check. Of course, Fan Qinjiao knew that the person who set King Nanzai on fire was definitely not concubine Yu, but Yu Ying. If Yuning had not resumed her identity as Fan Swining and wrote to the Fan family, asking the Fan family to take action against the King Nanzai shop, Su Hong would not have been the first to know about it. Since concubine Yu wanted to have Fan Swining with a fake face around her and bully everyone, she also wanted to be prepared for the consequences of being bullied. Fan Qinjiao must have eaten the flesh of concubine Yu for the evil caused by Fan Swining. When Xiao Xian walked into the courtyard, he had already heard about concubine Yu's affairs. When he saw Fan Qinjiao again, Xiao Xian was filled with admiration. Even when he handed the letter over, the admiration in his eyes was shining. As the crown princess expected, the letter sent from the main city was sent using carrier pigeons and took the official route. Sure enough, my mother still alarmed Sun Che. Even so, Sun Che's ability to do things for his mother in a timely manner can be regarded as a sign of his importance and concern for his mother. Fan Qinjiao had no intention of hiding the fact that his grandmother's shop was burned down, so he just took the letter from his mother and watched it with his grandmother. The shop was completely burned down, but fortunately everyone was fine. Tao Yuxian also breathed a sigh of relief, but looked up at Fan Qinjiao, unavoidably worried. "Do you think concubine Yu did it?" Fan Qinjiao did not intend to tell his grandmother Fan Swining about pretending to be Yuning, but said, "It doesn't matter who you are. Now it is the emperor's decree to treat the prince of Genii kingdom. This can be regarded as killing the chicken to scare the monkey. Even if someone wants to reach out again, you have to weigh it first." Tao Yuxian nodded, "That's true. I'm afraid there is no easing of tension between concubine Yu and concubine Yu. At present, the Hua family is still in a dark place, and no one knows what the future will be like. Although the prince is more valued than before, other princes who are getting married are also eyeing him covetously. The fight in the underworld is indeed a road to no return. Either you get ahead or you die." End of this chapter. The legitimate daughter of the prosperous medical fragrance will not marry. Author, Jinchi. Chapter 422. Chapter 422. I can only feel comfortable if you are uncomfortable. Fan Qinjiao sat with his grandmother for a while, then stood up and left. Xiao Xian originally left, but he stayed after hearing the news. Seeing the crown princess approaching, he took the initiative to ask, "The news I just got is that Princess Yu secretly released carrier pigeons. Pigeons raised in the palace will only fly in one direction. Main city. Concubine Yu suffered such a huge loss, so it was reasonable to send someone to investigate. Fan Kinjao also hopes that concubine Yu can find out the reason, so that she can be worthy of her kowtow and complaint today. Let's block the news for now. Fan Kinjao didn't want concubine Yu to find out anything at this time. The emperor has given the order. Even if concubine Yu really finds Yuning at this time, it will only relieve her anger. It is not painful or itchy. Only when concubine Yu cannot be found out, she will become even more angry. Yuning is even more restless. Only by making Yuning and concubine Yu feel uncomfortable, Fan Kinjao can spend the new year comfortably. Although Xiaoxian didn't understand what the crown princess meant, since the crown princess had spoken, he naturally had to comply. After leaving Zhuangzi, he directly pressed the dove that concubine Yu sent a message into his hand. Because Xiaoxian took action without anyone noticing, concubine Yu could not wait for any news. Seeing that the sky was getting darker, the palace was becoming lively, but concubine Yu was filled with anger. With all the lawsuits on your mind, why don't you still celebrate the new year? What year is it going to be? Concubine Yu couldn't find anything, but Yuning was even more confused. She originally wanted to cut off Fan Kinjao's source of medicine, but even if Fan Kinjao had that intention, he might not have the conditions. But who would have thought that Fan Kinjao would actually file a complaint in front of the emperor? I don't know what Fan Kinjao said to the emperor, which involved concubine Yu. Originally, Yuning was already 70–80% sure about the crown prince's illness. As long as Fan Kinjao couldn't cure it, she could secretly cure him. As long as the crown prince of the Genii kingdom recovers from his serious illness, Fan Kinjao will only have a dream if he wants to please the Genii kingdom. But now, concubine Yu's shop has been replaced by Fan Kinjao's. What can she do even if she is more confident? Yuning's heart was pounding when she thought that with concubine Yu's temperament, she would have to send someone to investigate carefully after suffering such a big loss. Just at this time, bursts of laughter passed by the door. Yuning felt that the laughter was unusually familiar, so she got up and walked to the window to check. The result was that Pan Yula was walking outside with Yan Hanbei. Tonight is a day to watch the New Year's Eve. Logically speaking, as a royal wife, she has to come to the palace to celebrate the new year. But looking at the cute smile on Pan Yula's face, Yuning only felt that it was so dazzling. Pan Yula didn't know that there were still eyes staring at her from behind. Thinking of the third prince's stare before he left today, she couldn't help but share with Yan Hanbei beside her. The third prince was very troubled last night. I was really able to get up early this morning and told me to come to the palace to celebrate the new year, which is really heartbreaking. Yan Hanbei smiled and said, "It can be seen that the third highness has you in his heart, unlike the first highness. Ever since marrying his highness, the two of them have said many things. It only adds up to a dozen sentences. How to talk about love. That's why Yan Hanbei hated Fan Kinjao. How could she have married a paralytic if Fan Kinjao hadn't been a hindrance? The third highness is indeed kind to me, but don't be discouraged. Even a high-ranking prince's heart is not made of stone. As long as he has a heart, he can always keep warm." Just like the third highness, he also said that he would wait until he returns to the main city. After that, she went back to her parents' house with me to sit down. A married woman can return to her parents' home in glory accompanied by her husband, which is something no one can ask for. Pan Yula's words are true, but more because she wants to persuade Yan Hanbei. She just hoped that Yan Hanbei could use her as an example to get along well with the eldest prince. Yan Hanbei naturally understood that Pan Yula was trying to enlighten her, so he smiled but said nothing more. But by the same token, falling into the warbler's ears is not the same feeling. Looking at Pan Yula, who was moisturized to a rosy complexion, Yuning felt like she had a lump in her throat. Obviously everything Pan Yula gets now should be hers, but look at her now. How come we have reached this situation step by step? At this time in the dream, it was her highlight moment. She was favored by concubine Yu and was doted on by the third prince. Stroking her swollen belly, Yuning had a sad look on her face. She didn't even know where she was wrong. So I feel relieved for you. If His Highness the Third Highness can really reach that position, you will be the well-deserved new queen. I'm afraid I will still be in your glory. Yan Hanbei looked at Pan Yula with a smile. Actually, this is just a joke between two people. After all, the prince is still here, so where can we find other princes? Looking at it now, as long as the prince does not make a big mistake, the other princes will have no chance no matter how outstanding they are. Yuning, who was standing at the window, suddenly raised her head, her charming eyes filled with a cold and sinister look. Others don't know, but it's impossible for her not to know. In the dream, it was the third prince who finally ascended to that position. Although what is happening now is not the same as in the dream, the ending will definitely not change. Yuning's limbs were a little stiff, because she couldn't imagine that if she continued like this, even if the ending was really the same as in the dream, would she still be the woman who accompanied the third prince? No. She must not sit there and wait for death any longer. Yuning's eyes slowly lowered, and finally landed on her belly that shouldn't be swollen. Something seemed to flash in his eyes, and then condensed at the bottom of his eyes. It is getting dark, and the palace has been lit up with lights. When Fan Qinjiao arrived, the other princes and concubines had also arrived. Before the New Year's banquet, the emperor first had to accept the advice of the ministers. To put it bluntly, it means listening to the ministers say auspicious words. Fan Qinjiao naturally came to the palace where the queen was staying first. Lily, who had been waiting at the door for a long time, saw the crown princess and rushed towards her with a smile. The other princes and concubines are all paying their respects to the queen. The crown princess will follow the slaves to the side hall to sit down. Fan Qinjiao took out a large silver bag from his sleeve and said, "Aunt Lily is here to help. The Chinese New Year is always for good luck." Lily did not refuse, but was surprised when she held the silver bag in her hand. "This amount? I'm afraid it's a little heavy." Fan Qinjiao smiled faintly. "Aunt Lily serves the queen with all her heart, but there are many things that I am unable to do. To put it bluntly, I still have to trouble Aunt Lily. As long as Aunt Lily is not too little." Looking at what the crown princess said, it really makes people feel so comfortable. Lily's smile became brighter and brighter. The princess' words are serious. This is what a slave should do. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The legitimate daughter of the prosperous medical fragrance will not marry. Author, Jinchi. Chapter 423. Chapter 423 The Queen Who Protects the Calf. Fan Qinjiao was led into the side hall by Lily. Compared with other places, it was very quiet here. However, the palace servants had already laid out melons, fruits, and cakes inside, which showed that the queen was very interested in her. After Lily took Fan Qinjiao through the door, she hurriedly turned around and walked out. Fan Qinjiao knew that the queen's empress could not live without Lily, so she didn't ask much. Sitting in the side hall, Fan Qingyuan looked at the palace guests coming and going in the palace, watching them laughing and listening to them whispering how much New Year's money the masters of each palace had given. This kind of excitement really adds a layer of warmth to the cold night outside. By chance, some people from Imperial Concubine Yu's palace were passing by outside the door. Compared with the people in other palaces, they were not that happy. "I don't know when Concubine Yu will be able to reward us with money. Look at the other people in the palace who are not weighing the money in their hands." Looking at Concubine Yu's face, "I'll be thankful as long as she doesn't take it out on us." The two little palace maids did not dare to show too much sadness on their faces, but their words were full of complaints. For slaves like them who serve in the palace all year round, their masters can give them some rewards during the Chinese New Year. But they were so unlucky that they had to serve concubine Yu. Fan Qinjiao held the teacup in his hand and drank it leisurely. I'm afraid that Xiaoxian is still holding on to the news, and how can concubine Yu be happy if she is full of anger? However, this made Fan Qinjiao relax a little. Concubine Yu is afraid that she is preoccupied with the news from the main city, so she has no time to target her. Although I am not afraid. But everyone wants to have a restful year. Calling the maids beside him over, Fan Qinjiao took out 2 money bags from his sleeves and said, "Go and give them to them." The palace maid was stunned, but she didn't dare to delay and hurriedly sent out the 2 heavy silver bags. The 2 little maids were shocked. With so much silver, could it be that gods have come down to earth? Looking at the 2 little palace ladies outside the palace who were laughing with tears in their eyes, Fan Qinjiao just laughed too. How can the people serving concubine Yu be worth your expense? Behind her, Queen Zhen 11's voice suddenly sounded. Fan Qinjiao quickly stood up and said, "Greetings to the queen." Empress Zhen 11 smiled and waved, signaling Fan Qinjiao to come over and talk. "Come and sit." Fan Qinjiao walked over and sat down, and then said, "My daughter-in-law only thought about the fire at the city gate, but she never wanted to harm the fish. It's not easy for them either. It's rare that they should be happy during the new year." Queen Zhen 11 felt so comfortable. Everyone in the harem understands this truth, but very few can actually do it. It is rare that Fan Qinjiao has this kind of understanding at such a young age. Only those with such ambition and heart can really take on the position of queen in the future. Empress Zhen 11 was smiling, and the more she looked at Fan Qinjiao, the more she liked her. "I really hope to see you and Feng Ming stabilize. It would be best if we have a son and a half. My future life will be fulfilling." Queen Zhen 11 thought to herself, "Xiao Qingyao is so sensible and steady, and the children he gives birth to will certainly be good." Fan Qinjiao, completely speechless. Queen Zhen 11 looked at Fan Qinjiao's embarrassed expression, and the smile on her face deepened. "It is rare that you are speechless, but what I say is not child's play. Little Qinjiao, you must remember, maybe everything will change in the future, but only if you have an heir by your side will you have nothing to worry about." Fan Qinjiao knew that the queen was afraid that he would follow her old path. "I think back when the emperor was not the emperor, he and the empress were inseparable, playing the piano and the harp in harmony." Although he understood, Fan Qinjiao still said without even hesitation, "Your Highness will not do it." Empress Zhen 11 was stunned. After a while, the pair of eyes that rarely fluctuated after seeing through the fickle world turned red. This kind of firm belief was something she had never experienced back then. So, in fact, when the emperor let go of her hand, she also chose to give up. Queen Zhen 11 felt sad in her heart. Looking at Fan Qinjiao in front of her, Queen Zhen 11 felt even more relieved. Her vision is indeed right, Xiao Qinjiao is a good child. Lily walked in from outside and was extremely surprised when she saw the queen's reddish eyes. Queen Zhen 11 quickly calmed down, looked at Lily and asked, "Is there any movement over there in the forest?" Lily shook her head, "Not yet, all the princes have not come back yet." Queen Zhen 11 nodded, "Continue to guard." Fan Qinjiao naturally knew the queen's worries. In previous years, the emperor would go into the forest together. Even if someone had the thief's heart, he would not have the courage. Otherwise something really happened to someone in front of the emperor. Could it be that the emperor did not take good care of his son? No one would do this kind of thing of putting a basin on one's head. But things are different now. The emperor has never participated in the hunting. I don't know how many people have other thoughts. His Highness did things safely, and even let all the princes enter the forest before. Now everyone is familiar with the terrain. Even if there is an accident, His Highness will be easy to talk to. Fan Qinjiao's heart. In fact, she is a little worried, but she can't show it now. Otherwise, the queen will be even more uneasy. Empress Zhengzi nodded. Hope so. There were footsteps at the door again. It was Lily leaving and returning. Probably because she was afraid that the queen would be disappointed, she spoke first before anyone could cross the threshold. To the queen, the second young lady of the Zhang family has come to pay her respects to the queen. Empress Zhen 11 still needs Zhang Yulan, so she wants to let people in. Please come in. Seeing this, Fan Qinjiao wanted to get up and leave first. In the end, the queen grabbed her hand and said, "You are my daughter-in-law. Where are you going when I am here?" Fan Qinjiao was helpless. My daughter-in-law went aside to wait for the queen. She and Zhang Yulan had disagreements, but Fan Qinjiao didn't want to get into trouble with the queen. It's not fear. Is simply not necessary. Empress Zhen 11 forced Fan Qinjiao to come back to her. Of course I understand her thoughts. That's why you have to continue sitting here, otherwise wouldn't you be laughed at by her? Use is use, but your daughter-in-law still has to support herself after all. Fan Qinjiao. I really didn't expect that the queen would protect her calf like this. As soon as Zhang Yulan entered the door, she saw Fan Qinjiao being held down by Queen Zhen 11. The smile on his face stagnated, but soon it rose again. I would like to send my regards to the queen, and wish the queen good luck, happiness, and a prosperous future. Empress Zhen 11 smiled and nodded, groping into her sleeves. I see that all of you are safe and happy, so I will be safe and happy too. The words were finished, but the queen's hand was still touching her sleeve. Zhang Yulan naturally knew the rules of receiving the New Year's money from the queen after saying auspicious words, so she knelt on the ground and did not move. However, the queen has been groping for a long time and is still groping. This is a bit embarrassing. Fan Qinjiao had no choice but to hand the money bag he had prepared to the queen. Queen Zhen 11 did not take it, but looked at Zhang Yulan and said, "Fortunately, the crown princess is prepared. I am getting older and can no longer be so thoughtful about many things. I will take the New Year's money soon." Bar. Zhang Yulan. Those with bitter faces can drip water. End of this chapter. The legitimate daughter of the prosperous medical fragrance will not marry. Author, Jinchi. Chapter 424. Chapter 424. Then no one will have it easy. It is one thing to receive the New Year's money from the Empress. Taking the New Year's money from the hands of the Crown Princess. It's really an insult. When you receive the lucky money, you must say auspicious words. Zhang Yulan is several years older than Fan Qinjiao. Although her status speaks for itself, it is also true that Zhang Yulan loves the prince. Now she is asked to lick her face and flatter the prince, and then take money from the prince's hand. Had it not been for the etiquette instruction to tell her to hold back, she would have burst into tears on the spot. Fan Qinjiao is actually embarrassed. Don't say that she didn't take Zhang Yulan seriously at all. Even if we really want to fight, there are plenty of ways. Instead of being like now, those who chase the ducks to the shelves use money to suppress others. But Queen Zhengzi made it clear that she wanted to use Fan Qinjiao's hand to press on the top of Zhang Yulan's head. This kind of behavior is undoubtedly not telling Zhang Yulan that Fan Qinjiao is my serious daughter-in-law. If you are obedient, I will not treat you badly. But if you still have other thoughts, today's power will be this is the beginning of your nightmare in the future. Zhang Yulan was filled with humiliation, but she could only force a smile and said, "I wish the crown princess and the crown prince will fly together and be a pair for the rest of their lives." The sarcastic sourness of what he said is not too obvious. In a country where Ziliang men have many wives and concubines, how can a king have no one in his harem? Fan Qinjiao smiled and said, "In this way, I have to accept the good wishes of the second young lady of the Zhang family." Zhang Yulan punched the cotton and could only grit his teeth, take the silver bag and stand up. The exchange between the two of them was just 1 or 2 words, but Queen Zhen 11 sighed inwardly. Compared with Xiao Qinjiao, this art blue is really not too far behind. The palace servants brought chairs over. Zhang Yulan sat down and then looked at Queen Zhengzi and said, "When I came here, I heard that the princes had not left the forest yet. I wonder if I can make it to the annual banquet tonight." Empress Zhen 11 smiled and said, "I am also waiting for news, but I think it is possible." Zhang Yulan also had a smile on her face. If His Royal Highness the Crown Prince can return victorious, the Emperor will definitely be delighted. Empress Zhen 11 said, "It may not necessarily be the Crown Prince who can win. I see that the other princes are well prepared." Fan Qinjiao saw that Zhang Yulan did not take the initiative to talk to her, so she would not get involved. Empress Zhen 11 has been a concubine for so many years. Is it true that she just can't see Zhang Yulan's ambition? No, Queen Zhengzi should see it clearly than anyone else. But now Queen Zhen 11 can still play Tai Chi with Zhang Yulan, which obviously means that Zhang Yulan still has value. But Fan Qinjiao absolutely cannot let Zhang Yulan marry Zhou Renjian. If Zhang Yulan really liked Zhou Renjian, she might still hesitate. Now, there is really nothing to hesitate about. Even if Zhang Yulan simply wanted to be detrimental to Mu Yan, Fan Qinjiao would not be able to agree, not to mention that he now clearly knows that Zhang Yulan wants to pave the way for Mu Yan's happiness. With the rules in mind, Fan Qinjiao is not in a hurry. A quarter of an hour later, someone from the palace invited the queen to go to the main hall. Even though there was no news from Beihe, Queen Zhengzi could only take Fan Qinjiao and Zhang Yulan out of the palace. There were already quite a few people sitting in the main hall. The other concubines were not as noble as the queen, so they had to come with their daughters-in-law early. But no one expected that the empress would not only take Fan Qinjiao but also Zhang Yulan. This is interesting. Concubine Yu was still thinking about being blamed, her face was gloomy and she didn't want to speak. Concubine Panda took the initiative and said, "No wonder I just said that I didn't see the second young lady of the Zhang family. It turned out that I went to pay my respects to the queen. Not to mention, seeing the second young lady of the Zhang family standing with the crown prince, I was really surprised. It's really evenly divided. This is really. Don't be too obvious about sowing dissension." Fan Qinjiao would naturally not take the initiative to reply to concubine Panda Phi. That would be transgression. But Queen Zhen 11 had no intention of coddling Panda concubine. "I didn't expect Panda concubine to have such a hasty temper. Pandi Phi. Why is she anxious?" Queen Zhen 11 sat down leisurely and then said with a smile, "Originally, the private affairs of the princes should be the concern of the mother and concubine, but if concubine Panda believes in my vision so much, it is better to wait. At the end of the year, I would like to tell the emperor how about sending some concubines to the eldest prince." Concubine Panda was stunned. Why is this still related to this? Pan Yula was originally a eldest prince whose relationship was not very good. If he sent someone in at this time. Concubine Lu Shu, the mother of the second prince, stared at concubine Panda, her eyes about to burst into flames. "Make your mouth dry. Now, my son has been dragged into the water." Looking at Pan Yula's expression again, it's not much better. Although I can't say I blame concubine Panda, I feel uncomfortable in my heart. Pandi Phi didn't expect it, but she just said one sentence, and the result was a lawsuit on her head. In a blink of an eye, seeing the queen still smiling, concubine Panda was so angry that she almost broke her teeth. The queen is really becoming more and more sharp. Empress Zhen 11 is naturally sharp. She has been accustomed to the harem for so many years, but everyone wants to set fire to her head. Now that Feng Ming is gradually becoming more powerful, and with Xiao Qinjiao helping her, Empress Zhen 11, who no longer has any scruples, can no longer tolerate the white-eyed wolves in the harem. Concubine Panda was knocked backwards, and the atmosphere in the main hall became tense. The princes and concubines of the younger generation did not dare to speak at this time. But everyone was still happy to see the queen and Zhang Yulan appear together. Who wouldn't enjoy seeing the crown princess busy? As soon as Zhang Yulan sat down, Pan Yulu took the initiative to send the palace attendant beside her to deliver a cake. The meaning of this really shouldn't be too obvious. Zhang Yulan followed the empress and just entered the house. The third prince and concubine showed concern and were obviously trying to win over her. Pan Yulu did this, firstly, to embarrass Fan Qingjao, and secondly, because she really wanted to win over Zhang Yulan. Now the third prince is very jealous of that position, so having more people around will give him more options. But before Pan Yulu could feel proud enough, she saw that the pastry was returned intact. Pan Yulu looked at the cakes that had gone and returned in disbelief, her whole face seemed to be blooming. Zhang Yulan was naturally happy to win over the third prince's concubine, but only she knew the feeling. So what if he was brought in by the queen, but he was still overwhelmed by the crown princess? Now it is obvious that the queen is supporting the crown princess. She is not confident enough to take a share of the pie, and how dare she accept the third prince's favor? If you can't afford it, it's no joke. Fan Qingjao originally planned to have a peaceful meal, but in the end, someone made a fuss and didn't want to feel better. Since you don't want her to have a good time, then you shouldn't have a good time at all. It was almost very light, and Fan Qingjao just laughed lowly. End of this chapter. The legitimate daughter of the prosperous medical fragrance will not marry. Author, Jinchi. Chapter 425. Chapter 425. The Crown Princess lives up to her reputation. The voice was not loud, but the emperor happened to be absent at this moment, so the main hall was very quiet. Empress Zhen 11 saw the little actions of the third princess, but when she heard Fan Qingjao smile, she followed the trend and asked, "I have always seen the princess as steady and reserved, but she didn't know that during the Chinese New Year today, even the prince the concubine likes to laugh so much. I don't know why she laughs. Can you tell me so that I can be happy too?" Fan Qingjao stood up and said happily, "To answer the queen's question, it's actually not a big deal. I just think that the third prince has a good temper and a good heart, and she can talk to and get along with everyone. No, just now I also sent someone to deliver cakes to the second lady of the Zhang family. The main hall is actually very large, and everyone has their own thoughts. Apart from the princes and concubines around him, the people in front of Pan Yulu's little move just now are difficult to notice. Unlike Queen Zhen 11, who is the master of the harem, she has long been accustomed to seeing all directions and listening to all directions. If it's just a small fight, it's actually nothing. It's also common for sisters-in-law to form factions. But now that the matter has come to the queen's side, the matter is not as simple as between sisters-in-law. The crown princess is not yet experienced, no matter whether the queen empress brought the second daughter of the Zhang family to show up, whether it was intentional or not, it is not the turn of others to comment. Especially someone like the third prince's concubine, who is also the daughter-in-law of a noble concubine, is clearly giving cakes to the official lady brought by the empress. What is she trying to do? Are you planning to openly win over people who are related to the queen? Still want to drive a wedge between the queen and the crown princess? At the moment, who doesn't know that concubine you and the empress don't want to deal with each other, so it's crazy to make such a fuss? Empress Zhen 11 looked at Pan Yulu with a smile in her eyes. "I didn't realize that the three princes and concubines are so close to each other. It is really a blessing for concubine Yu." It was concubine Yu who was wandering in Taixu. Suddenly her name was called, and people were a little confused. Looking at Pan Yulu who stood up in panic, she couldn't figure out what happened for a while. However, no matter what happened, concubine Yu still had to face her own people. "What's going on, queen? Isn't it true that a person who is celebrating the new year must be restrained by the younger generation?" Aunt Ying's head ached terribly after listening to her mother-in-law's words. "It's just that the queen is keeping a close eye on her now, so she can't tell the whole story." Queen Zhen 11 smiled when she heard this. "Concubine Yu still doesn't suffer any loss. Fortunately, I didn't say anything. I just envy concubine Yu for her good fortune. Pan Yula was about to cry when she heard this. She is not too fussy, but that doesn't mean she is a fool. Looking at the other princes and concubines sitting upright, there was something else she didn't understand. Empress Zhen 11 was slapped in the face where she should be, and she was embarrassed when she should be embarrassed. She looked at Pan Yulu and said, "Third princess, please sit down. I'm just telling the truth. It's the new year and people are getting old. It's just a bit more emotional." Pan Yulu. Even sitting on the chair, I felt like there was a jack on my body. In a blink of an eye, he looked at Fan Kinjao not far away, wishing he could eat him alive. Fan Kinjao must have done it on purpose. This restless bitch. Fan Kinjao naturally did it on purpose. Does she still want to clap her hands and cheer when someone steps on her face to have a carnival? If Pan Yulu is not given a show of strength today, not everyone will be thinking about stepping on her face from now on. On concubine Yu's side, Aunt Ying had already whispered what had just happened. Concubine Yu. It is really a person sitting here, and the pot comes from the sky. Concubine Yu, who was blamed one after another, had an angry face all over her face. Thinking about her calculations, even the queen wanted to give her 3 points in the harem, but look at the people around her, they are all stupid. Especially the third prince and concubine, is she out of her mind? How dare she do such a blatant attempt to win over her? Pan Yula was staring at Fan Kinjao unhappily, but the result was that concubine Yu's disgusted look gave her a sign. Under concubine Yu's gaze that seemed to contain 1,000 swords, Pan Yula could only lower her head obediently. At this time, I was so angry that I didn't even dare to express my anger. Zhang Yulan, who was sitting a little further away, saw everything in his eyes and his heart was beating wildly. She sent someone to inquire about Fan Kinjao's name when she came back. At first I thought it was just a matter of luck, but now it seems that is not the case. It's just a sentence, it can make the third prince and concubine fall on their backs, and they are not human inside and outside. What does this ability have to do with luck? It seems that she really wants to think carefully about her future path. Yuning, who was sitting on the other side, looked at Pan Yula who was being treated as a joke, and became more determined in her thoughts. Sure enough, this Pan Yula was not worthy of standing beside the third prince at all. Sure enough, only she is worthy of the third prince. It seems like a small thing, but it makes the people in the main hall feel more serious. Fan Kinjao really doesn't like this kind of social interaction. There is a knife hidden in the smile and a needle hidden in the cotton, which makes people feel tired. In fact, Han Jingchen, who was sitting next to Fan Kinjao, didn't like it either, but what could be done if he didn't like it? Who said they are all royal daughters-in-law? Maybe they are pretty good, but Kinjao is the worst. If the prince successfully ascends the throne, I am afraid that the draft will be followed immediately. The kind of days in dire straits. Han Jingchen gets a headache just thinking about it. The atmosphere in the main hall became increasingly awkward. Fortunately, Bai Tu accompanied the emperor through the door at this time. Everyone stood up to greet the emperor, and the chorus of greetings finally broke the suffocating embarrassment. Emperor Yongchang waved his hand and motioned for everyone to sit down, and then started chatting with Queen Zhengzi and the concubines. It was just a small talk, but no one dared to take it lightly in front of the emperor. Even concubine Yu kept her spirits up. Emperor Yongchang punished concubine Yu by handing over her shop in the main city, but now he doesn't show any mercy to concubine Yu. Concubine Yu is really smiling like a flower in her face and heart. Even though Empress Zhen 11 had known for a long time that the emperor was partial to the imperial concubine, she remained calm and composed without changing her expression. Anyway, you've gotten used to it over the years, haven't you? Why bother to make yourself unhappy? Everyone waited hungry for an hour, but saw no movement outside the door. Emperor Yongchang's brows slowly wrinkled. Bai Tu, Go outside and take a look. Baitu didn't dare to delay, so he bowed down and left. In the main hall, although the atmosphere has not cooled down, everyone is still trying their best to please the emperor, but whether it is the concubines or the princes and concubines, there is a hint of anxiety on their faces. A whole day passed, and not a single prince came back. Whose son is not in a hurry? Whose husband is not worried? Of course, this kind of thing is not Yan Hanbei's turn. The eldest prince has been paralyzed in bed for many years and needs a wooden wheel cart to go out. How can he go hunting? Just looking at the worry on other people's faces, Yan Hanbei felt worse than worry. And all of this is Fan Qinjiao's fault after all. Fan Qinjiao, who took the blame for no reason, has no time to talk to Yan Hanbei now. The prince has not returned yet, and her right eyelid is also twitching violently. In almost the time it takes to burn an incense stick, the white tea leaves and comes back again. Standing beside the emperor, whispering something softly. Emperor Yongchang's frown relaxed, and after a while he smiled and said, "You will be rewarded heavily when you come back." End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The legitimate daughter of the prosperous medical fragrance will not marry. Author, Jinchi. Chapter 426. Chapter 426. Something big happened really. It turned out that before the princes returned, they encountered a brown bear in the forest. The bear has extraordinary significance to the people of Ziliang. Because the word Xiong has the same pronunciation as Xiong, it means ambitious, majestic, heroic, and talented. Today is the 30th of the new year, and the princes will not miss the opportunity to ask for a good omen from the emperor. Hearing that the leader was the fifth prince, he rushed towards the brown bear the moment he saw it. When other princes saw it, they also wanted to help with the siege. Now the brown bear has been carried out of the forest by the military generals who followed him. The princes are also getting ready, and they estimate that they will be able to come back soon. Emperor Yongchang has always liked fame, so a gift like this is perfect for him. Others were relieved after hearing the news, and seeing how happy the emperor was, their words of flattery continued like flowing water. Fan Qinjiao was sitting on a chair, frowning slightly. The reason why brown bears are difficult to capture is not only because of their strong bodies and immense strength, but also because of the safety of the royal family. Usually, before hunting, there are people who drive the brown bears in the forest away. The brown bear that suddenly appeared now is too coincidental and strange no matter how you think about it. Han Jingchen seemed to see Fan Qinjiao's uneasiness and said with a smile, "Maybe it really is a coincidence." Fan Qinjiao looked at Han Jingchen's smiling lips and nodded, "I hope so." As the generals came back with the brown bears on their backs, there was a lot of excitement outside the main hall. Fan Qinjiao and others even accompanied the emperor when they went out to see the brown bear. It was really a big one. Even if he was lying on the ground, he would be as tall as 3 people. Emperor Yongchang seemed to be in a really good mood. He waved his hand and said with a smile, "Everyone has merit, Baitu, reward me." The generals who had been busy all day were flattered and knelt on the ground to thank Long En. At this moment, I saw a general running hurriedly from a distance. Baitu didn't want to disturb the emperor's mood, so he stepped forward and asked first. Result. Baitu's face is white. Soon, everyone saw Baitu returning to the emperor's side. He didn't know what he said. His voice was too low, even the queen beside him couldn't hear it. However, as Baitu finished speaking, Emperor Yongchang's expression turned ugly. Everyone looked at it, and their hearts tightened. But Emperor Yongchang had no intention of explaining. With Baitu's help, he took the generals in front of him and left. Facing such a sudden situation, everyone was a little confused. Empress Zhen 11 presided over the overall situation and said, I guess something happened at the court. My sisters and princesses should go back first. The queen has said so, and no one dares to question it. The concubines in the harem were walking so fast, they all wanted to go back quickly so that they could find someone to inquire about the news. Fan Kinjao simply stayed in the queen's palace. He originally wanted to get the news from the queen, but he didn't expect that before her was hot, he saw the queen enter the door. Seeing Fan Kinjao stand up, Queen Zhen 11's eyes were filled with relief. When did you come here? Fan Kinjao helped the empress sit down. You came directly from the main hall. Are the princes back? Empress Zhen 11 shook her head. You haven't come back yet. Now all the generals are in the emperor's palace. What happened? Something is so tightly covered that it's impossible to find out. Things that even the queen cannot find out about, others really don't even think about. Although Fan Kinjao is not afraid of others getting the news first, Fan Kinjao still feels uneasy. After all, the princes in the forest have not come out yet. What exactly happened can only be guessed now. Lily hurriedly walked in at this time. Just now news came from the west side of the bedroom that concubine Yu was ill. Hearing these words, Queen Zhen 11 and Fan Kinjao just looked at each other. The disease came rather suddenly. No matter why concubine Yu falls ill, she can use it as a cover to worry about the third prince. I'm afraid the queen must be extremely careful. Concubine Yu is sick, and the queen, as the master of the harem, must go to visit, otherwise he just has a careless mind and doesn't take good care of the harem. Empress Zhen 11 patted Fan Kinjao's hand and said, you should also go back early. Don't worry, I will notify you as soon as there is any news. Fan Kinjao nodded, knelt down and walked out of the door. It was clear that 30 had not passed yet, and the palace suddenly became deserted. As for Zhuangzi, there is also a depression. It is probably because they heard the news from the palace, and no one dares to continue to watch the new year in a big name. By the time Fan Kinjao returned to Zhuangzi, it was already dark inside. Grandma and Mu Yan had already gone to bed, and Fan Kinjao didn't want to disturb the two of them, so he went into the backyard alone. The energy that is rare when walking in the snow is probably because he has really slept enough in the past few days. He is currently playing with snowdrifts in the yard with a pair of copper bell-like eyes. Before Fan Kinjao opened the door, Ta Shui smelled a familiar smell. By the time Fan Kinjao walked in, Ta Shui had already been obediently sitting at the door waiting. It's really been another year, and Taxiu has grown up a lot. Now that he jumped into Fan Kinjao's arms, Fan Kinjao was a little unable to hold him. Looking at Taxiu's fat head and big ears, Fan Kinjao wondered for the first time what kind of cat this cat was and how it could grow so big. Taxiu couldn't imagine Fan Kinjao's suspicion. His big, round head kept rubbing against Fan Kinjao's chest, purring comfortably. Suddenly, Tug Jiu, who had been so docile just now, suddenly bared his fangs towards the wall. When he suddenly fell from Fan Kinjao's body to the ground, he protected Fan Kinjao behind him. His eyes, which were glowing red in the darkness, were always staring at the wall, and the down on his back was rising. Fan Kinjao just stood behind Ta Shui, but his thoughts kept thinking. Although Zhuangzi is not as safe as the palace, after all, it is under the eyes of the emperor. Is it possible that someone is really so bold and dares to be so blatantly disadvantageous to her? An object flew down from the wall lightly. Ta Shui was already ready to go, and he rushed over with a single swoop. Sabai's body is like the string of an arrow, so fast and agile that it is impossible to catch it. Fan Kinjao just stood there and watched for a while, then he saw Taxiu coming back with a note in his mouth. Looking at the drooped look, he seemed quite disappointed that he didn't get into a fight. Fan Kinjao bent down and took the note from Ta Shui's mouth, opening it in the faint moonlight. Suddenly, my limbs felt stiff and half of my body was numb. End of this chapter. The legitimate daughter of the prosperous medical fragrance will not marry. Author, Jinchi. Chapter 427. Chapter 427. An unknown note. The prince fell off a cliff and his injuries are unknown. Entering the forest from the west side path can bypass the guards. The few words on the note made Fan Kinjao's heart ache like needle pricks. After a long while, Fan Kinjao bent down, touched Taxiu's big head and said, "Go find the people around the prince and come over. Whether it's Xiaoxian or Lin Yi, anyone can come." Taxiu is very spiritual. As Fan Kinjao finished speaking, he jumped up the wall and disappeared. Fan Kinjao took a strong breath and sat down on the stone bench in the yard regardless of the cold. No matter how cold the winter weather was, it could not cool her trembling heart. Fan Kinjao knew that the note was sent so quietly, and the meaning it wanted to express was not to send a message. But this hunting, the emperor did not show up, is really a perfect opportunity to take action. Fan Kinjao, who knew Bailey Rong's insidiousness, knew better that Bailey Rongs would never take advantage of this opportunity. Thinking about concubine Yu's innocent illness, Fan Kinjao believed the words on the note a little more. Hands over again, Fan Kinjao thought that he was already immune to all poisons. In the end, she lost her composure. It was only now that Fan Kinjao discovered the importance of Bailey Fengming's existence. When Xiaoxian came with Ta Shui, he looked at the crown princess whose face was uglier than the moonlight. Green and white. A person just sat there in the ice and snow, his eyes empty and dull. Xiaoxian had never seen such a crown princess before, and he was very flustered for a while. The crown princess. Fan Kinjao raised his head following the sound, and before he spoke, he handed over the note in his hand. Xiaoxian took it and took a look. It is not an exaggeration to say that it was struck by thunder. "I wonder who sent this note to the crown princess." Fan Kinjao shook his head, asking something he didn't want to answer. "Is there a way to enter the forest now?" Xiaoxian frowned and said, "The forest has been sealed off by the emperor's order. I heard that the generals who came out earlier also brought people into the forest. Now only the sixth prince came out, but I don't know who he saw." "What happened?" I was stunned. I didn't say anything but just kept trembling. "The sixth prince has come out. It seems that the one delivering the message to the emperor is probably the sixth prince. Since the sixth prince looked like that, something must have really happened in the woods. But it is not yet clear whether Bailey Fengming was in danger. It's just that no matter what happened in the woods, since Xiaoxian couldn't get in, she didn't even think about it." But just waiting like this made Fan Kinjao really restless. Looking down at Ta Shui at his feet, Fan Kinjao said softly, "Help me find him. If you see him, please bring him to safety." Ta Shui obediently rubbed Fan Kinjao's palm, as if to comfort her not to worry. She waited until the cold palm gradually gained some warmth, and then jumped out of the yard again. "Xiaoxian is. It means convinced. People cannot enter the other side of the forest, but they can easily enter by walking in the snow. Even if someone sees it, it will be mistaken for prey in the forest." Just looking down at the note in his hand again, Xiaoxian's heart became cold. The Linzi area has been sealed off by the emperor. You only need to send someone to inquire about this kind of thing, but the person who wrote the note instigated the crown princess to do this. If you break in at any time, if the emperor finds out, I'm afraid he will be convicted. Whether the information on the note is true or false, it is certain that the person who wrote the note has bad intentions. Of course Fan Kinjao knew that the person who wrote the note had no good intentions, so he was even more defensive. The person who wrote this note was also negligent. In this life, she has indeed never seen this font, but she was very familiar with it in her previous life. Fan Kinjao smiled coldly, looked at Xiaoxian and said, "Help me send a message." A message is different from a note. A message is only misunderstood, and no evidence can be found even if it is checked. Xiaoxian immediately understood that the crown princess was going to bite her back, but having seen strong winds and waves, he was naturally not afraid. The crown princess may give you orders. Fan Qinjiao named 2 people to Xiaoxian. Even though Xiaoxian was well prepared, he was still stunned. He looked at the princess carefully again and saw that he had not heard wrongly, so he turned around and left. Fan Qinjiao looked at the note that Xiaoxian placed on the stone table and flicked it in his hand. The west side path. I'm afraid it will get lively soon. She hoped that the person she was looking for would not disappoint the person who wrote the note. All the princes entered the forest, but only the 6th prince came out. Rumors about the palace were abuzz for a while, and everyone's eyes fell on the 6th prince. After all, except for the prince, no other princes came out. The princes and concubines were restless, so they sent out the people around them to try their best to get news from the 6th prince. However, the 6th prince was really frightened. Ever since he returned to the palace, he had been covering himself in bed. Han Jingchen sat aside and coaxed her. Her words were thinned to 3 levels, but she didn't ask a single word. Han Jingchen was anxious and didn't know what to do. It was late at night, but the palace was still brightly lit. The concubines in each palace were worried about their son's safety, and they were anxious both internally and externally. Concubine Yu was lying on the soft couch, feeling very anxious. Although this matter has been planned for a long time, who knows what changes will happen before the dust settles. Grandma Ying suddenly walked in the door in a hurry, her face not very good. Concubine Yu quickly sat up, but is there any news from the 3rd prince? Aunt Ying shook her head, it's not news from His Highness, it's other news. Concubine Yu frowned and looked at Aunt Ying. She really didn't know what news there was now. It was more important than the safe return of her son. Aunt Ying really became more useless as she got older. She couldn't even tell the priorities. How could Aunt Ying not see the impatience in Concubine Yu's eyes, but she still took a step forward and said, Your Majesty, someone just sent a message saying that. Concubine Yu originally heard it like this, but she didn't expect it to be like this, and she almost jumped up from the soft couch. Is this serious? It's absolutely true. Before the old slave came to meet the queen, he had already sent someone to find out. He was indeed not in the palace. Concubine Yu. I never expected that it would be her who came to give me eye drops at this time. Concubine Yu slowly stood up from the soft couch and asked Aunt Ying to change her clothes. The anger gushing around her was like fire. She should have thought of it a long time ago. That person always had his own thoughts. She was careless. End of this chapter. The legitimate daughter of the prosperous medical fragrance will not marry. Author, Jinchi. Chapter 428. Chapter 428 How could she be concubine Yu? The lights of the palace were brightly lit, making the surrounding area completely dark. On the west side of the path, the Oriole is waiting silently. Suddenly, footsteps came from far and near. Yuning looked at the direction where the sound came from, with a happy expression on her face. Sure enough, it's still here. She just knew that Fan Qinjiao would be unable to sit still when he received the note. Looking down at the child in her belly again, Yuning's eyes condensed with a cold light. Don't blame her for being cruel, there is nothing she can do about it. If she really gives birth to the child, so what if she gets the emperor's favor? That's not what she wanted at all. Now the 3rd prince looked at her with enough disgust. If she really gave birth to the emperor's child. Yuning didn't dare to think further. Concubine Yu put her in this position because she wanted to share the emperor's favor. At that time, she was also very excited, so she nodded in agreement in order to stabilize the 3rd prince's position, but she never thought about how Concubine Yu could let her escape unscathed if she really got the emperor's favor. Yuning touched her swollen belly again, and suddenly her gaze became firm. Hearing the footsteps getting closer and closer, Yu Ying hurriedly walked towards the woods on the left. However, after only taking a few steps, she heard an extremely familiar sound exploding not far away. Yuning agreed to travel in such a hurry, but where are she going? Yuning. It is no exaggeration to say that it is like being struck by lightning. Yuning, who was full of scheming just now, completely froze in place. She looked at the person who was gradually revealed in front of her in disbelief. It's really concubine Yu. Why is it her? Yuning couldn't understand. The person she was looking for was clearly Fan Kinjao. Concubine Yu was still half believing what Nanny Ying said, but she came over thinking that she would rather kill 1,000 people by mistake than let one go. Now looking at Yuning's pale face, there is still something she doesn't understand. Concubine Yu looked at Yuning standing alone, took a step forward, and slapped her without saying a word. "Pa" is crisp and loud. Half of Yuning's cheeks instantly became red and swollen. Yuning stood there silently, feeling hurt and wronged, but not daring to say a word. Concubine Yu was so angry that if she wasn't worried about the child in Yuning's belly, she would have wanted to suffocate her to death right here. After taking a deep breath for a long time, Concubine Yu still felt angry and simply told Aunt Ying, "Take this person back to me and watch carefully." Grandma Ying nodded and hurriedly walked to Yuning's side. She didn't care about Yuning's feelings. She took Yuning's hand and strode back. Yuning's cheeks were red and swollen, and she was forced to follow Grandma Ying, her mind filled with what happened today. She personally threw the note into Fan Kinjao's yard, so it was watertight. Concubine Yu definitely didn't know about it, but Concubine Yu still came. Fan Kinjao. Yuning seemed to have thought of something, and her whole body trembled. Yes, Concubine Yu came uninvited, so she must have received some news. Only she and Fan Kinjao knew about this matter. If she hadn't leaked the news, it would have been Fan Kinjao who passed the news to Concubine Yu. Once the matter was figured out, Yuning hated her so much that her teeth almost broke. Fan Kinjao. Yuning was just waiting for Fan Kinjao to die on the spot, not to have a good death, but she saw an unusually familiar figure outside her bedroom. When she saw clearly that it was the person standing outside her bedroom, Yuning felt a surge of anger rushing into her heart. Fan Kinjao, how dare she show up? Aunt Ying didn't expect that the crown princess would be waiting here. She was thinking that something bad might happen, but she still came over with a smile on her face to say hello, "Old slave, I want to say hello to the crown princess." "I wonder if it's so late, what's the matter with the crown princess, urgent?" Fan Kinjao looked at Aunt Ying, but she was calm. "I heard that Yuning promised to be a month old, and now the emperor is worried about other things, so I just wanted to give Yuning a safe pulse, as the royal daughter-in-law, just to share the worries for the emperor." What this says? It can be said to be watertight. Mammy Ying thought about it carefully before speaking again. Yuning promised to go to Concubine Yu just now to pay her respects. I am afraid that she is too weak now, so Yuning agreed to accept the concubine's kindness. If it were anyone else, hearing this, I am afraid that no matter how unwilling they are, they would still be able to back off. After all, Aunt Ying moved Concubine Yu out. However, Fan Kinjao was no one else, and the smile on his face became even more friendly after hearing these words. Normally speaking, the month Yuning agreed to is not too big, it is just to meet Concubine Yu, that's all. Fatigue is very rare, so I have to give Yuning a safe pulse. But there's nothing wrong with it. I think Aunt Ying also knows that the emperor values Yuning's agreement to have this baby. If something goes wrong with Yuning's consent because of her meeting with Concubine Yu, I'm afraid Concubine Yu doesn't want to see it either. Of Aunt Ying. Really, why is the crown princess so difficult to deal with? Fan Kinjao stood motionless, with a smile on his face like the spring breeze in March. It is impossible for her and Concubine Yu to relax in this life. If this is the case, what else does she have to worry about? Mother Ying's face darkened as she looked at the calm and composed crown princess. But the crown princess is reasonable, so there is nothing she can do if she is an old fool. Seeing helplessly that the crown princess and Yuning agreed to enter together, Nanny Ying had no choice but to leave the palace quickly and go to inform concubine Yu. Yuning's face was so gloomy that it seemed like water dripped from her face. Especially those eyes that were fixed on Fan Qinjiao's face, as resentful as if they were quenched with poison. Fan Qinjiao seemed not to notice it at all. When the palace servants in the room helped Yuning do it, she really raised her hand and pressed it on Yuning's pulse. Yuning agrees that her pulse is stable, but her heart has been a bit strong recently. She still needs to eat something light in her diet. There is no need to take fetal protection pills too frequently. A large amount of supplements will inevitably be harmful to the fetus. Fan Qinjiao's voice was fair and steady. It was as if the person whose pulse she was taking at this moment was just an ordinary patient. Yuning stared at Fan Qinjiao fiercely, with no intention of speaking. The palace attendants who were waiting on the side were all frightened by Yuning's eyes. With that extremely sinister look, they all believed that she was possessed by an evil spirit and wanted to devour the crown princess in one gulp. This depressing atmosphere made the palace people dare not even express their feelings, and they bowed their heads and retreated. Until there was no third person in the room, Yuning said coldly, "Fan Qinjiao, why do you pretend to be a good person here now?" Fan Qinjiao took back his hand slowly, with a faint smile on his face. "I'm just trying hard to make Yuning promise that she and the baby in my belly will be healthy. How can I call it pretending to be a good person?" Yuning narrowed her eyes coldly. "Don't say you don't know what I'm talking about." End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The legitimate daughter of the prosperous medical fragrance will not marry. Author, Jinchi. Chapter 429. Chapter 429, Of course I'm here to see your joke. Fan Qinjiao is naturally aware of Yuning's little calculations. The real Yu warbler had long been secretly killed. What is sitting here now is just a chess piece in the hands of concubine Yu. Fanswinning. Fan Qinjiao also knew that no matter how hard Fanswinning had agreed to serve concubine Yu to serve the emperor, the child in Fanswinning's belly had become Fanswinning's biggest obstacle. Fan Qinjiao still knows the man Bailey wrongs. Selfish, greedy, and mercenary, eating soft food but having to smash the rice bowl after eating. Perhaps Bailey wrongs could tolerate his woman serving his father, but he simply could not tolerate his woman being pregnant with a child that was not his. I am afraid that Fanswinning realized something belatedly and decided to take the child away. Tonight, Fanswinning can send a message to Fan Qinjiao in order to lead Fan Qinjiao to the path on the west side, so that when Fan Qinjiao enters the forest, he will fall down to slander Fan Qinjiao. At that time, the emperor will conduct a strict investigation, and the fact that Fan Qinjiao entered the forest is undisputed. Fan Qinjiao naturally takes the blame for the child in Fanswinning's belly. Yuning promised to seem to have forgotten her current identity. You are the emperor's favorite, and you are selfish and selfish. You seek your position in his position. If Yuning promises to try to go beyond the limit, you will be struck by lightning. Fan Qinjiao looked at Fanswinning, who was wearing Yuning's skin, with a smile. Even if her identity was not revealed, she would tear off that layer of skin and press her to the ground. Yuning's face turned blue, and the veins on the back of her hands bulged. Fan Qinjiao, you have such a vicious mind. Fan Qinjiao looked at Yuning and smiled softly. Is this vicious? I feel that compared with the plan that Yuning promised, my method seems to be more merciful. After all, I intend to keep Yuning's promised belly. The children inside. It was you who taught me to be cruel, so why should you blame me for being too cruel now? Fan Qinjiao, what are you doing here? Of course I'm here to see your joke. The joke is not made every day. Yuning's whole body was covered in hair from Fan Qinjiao's laughter, and her face became even paler. She always felt that Fan Qinjiao's eyes seemed to be able to see through her heart. You want to follow Bailey wrongs to get ahead, but I stand by the prince's side. We are each our own masters, each based on our ability. The winner is the king, and the loser lies flat. Now you are just lying flat. What's the point of feeling unfair? Since you set up a scheme against me, you should be prepared to pay the price. Fanswinning, do you think this is true? Hearing this, Yuning was so frightened that her legs became weak. She has never seen Fan Kinjao like this before. Whether it's in a dream or in a memory. Fan Kinjao, do you really think you are the one who has the chance to win? Yuning was panicked to the extreme, but she calmed down. Fan Kinjao's thoughts turned around and he tried quietly, even if it's not me, it probably won't be you. Yuning looked at Fan Kinjao angrily, then you may be disappointed. It's not you, it must be me. To tell you the truth, I really wanted to use you to remove the child in my belly when I gave you the note. But the message on the note was. Before he finished speaking, the ajar door of the bedroom was pushed open. With the support of Grandma Ying, concubine Yu stepped in with a cold face. Looking at Yuning and Fan Kinjao looking at each other in the room, concubine Yu suppressed the anger in her heart and smiled half-heartedly. I heard that the crown princess misses Yuning's promised body very much. I didn't expect that the crown princess is also a warm-hearted person people. Fan Kinjao gave a blessing that was neither arrogant nor humble. Greetings to concubine Yu. Yuning also quickly bent her knees and said, Concubine Yu. Concubine Yu glanced around the room in front of her. Everything was in order, and there didn't seem to be any signs of tearing. Concubine Yu secretly breathed a sigh of relief. Concubine Yu asked Aunt Ying to help Yuning up. Yuning agrees to sit down. She is not feeling well after all. If something really happens, the emperor will be furious. As for Fan Kinjao, concubine Yu just glanced at him coldly and sat on the upper seat. When she heard that Fan Kinjao was about to diagnose Yuning's pulse, concubine Yu felt that her whole body was not good. Others don't know Yuning's identity, but it's impossible for concubine Yu not to know. Fan Kinjao is the descendant of the Tao family's medical daughter, and she is also Ji Hongliao's close disciple. If any Niduan is found in Yuning's body, even she may not be able to catch it. Although everything is calm now, concubine Yu only feels more dazzled when she looks at Fan Kinjao. I don't know what the princess told Yuning to check her pulse. You might as well tell me. Your Majesty has no time to worry about such trivial matters now. The palace also shares the emperor's worries. After all, she is a concubine who has dominated the imperial palace for decades, and her words can be said to be impeccable. Yuning's heart tightened when she heard this. Obviously, Fan Kinjao had revealed her identity just now, and it would be an exaggeration to say that she was in a state of turmoil. At this time, even if Fan Kinjao continues to quarrel with concubine Yu, it would be natural to let it take its course. By then, if Fan Kinjao makes things worse, even concubine Yu will be helpless. The counterfeit people were serving the emperor. Yuning promised that the fetus will be stable, but she has been a little overworked recently, so it's not a big deal as long as she rests peacefully. Fan Kinjao's voice was calm, telling the truth. Yuning. I really wonder if I heard something wrong. As long as Fan Kinjao uses her identity to cause trouble, it will be enough to get rid of her with the help of the emperor. Even concubine Yu. But why is Fan Kinjao silent? Fan Kinjao naturally hopes that evil will be punished. If she could see concubine Yu and others lying dead on the street right now, she would probably wake up laughing even in her dreams. But reason tells Fan Kinjao that now is not the time to break up. With concubine Yu's calculations, how could she not calculate the consequences if she was exposed? But concubine Yu still did it boldly. In this case, I am afraid that concubine Yu has already planned everything. According to Fan Kinjao's understanding of concubine Yu is afraid that once she reveals that there is a problem with Yuning's identity, concubine Yu will directly eradicate Fanswinning, and then bite her back, saying that she was the one who drove Yuning to death by inciting rumors. Actually, Fan Kinjao doesn't care whether Fan Swining dies or not. But no matter how much the adults fight, the child in Fan Swining's belly is innocent. If Fan Kinjao really turns a blind eye to the child in Fan Swining's belly, then what difference does she have from her selfish self in the previous life, who trampled on corpses and shed blood for the sake of profit? Then she, concubine Yu and Bailey Rongs will become friends. That is not what Fan Kinjao wants. Revenge, repay a favor, but it has nothing to do with sin. End of this chapter. The legitimate daughter of the prosperous medical fragrance will not marry. Author, Jinchi. Chapter 430. Chapter 430. What is Fan Kinjao planning? Concubine Yu listened to what Fan Kinjao said, but she didn't believe it at all. She single-handedly supported Yuning to compete with the queen for favor. Naturally, it is also to give Bailey Rongs a stable foundation. Concubine Yu didn't believe it. A smart person like Fan Kinjao couldn't think of this. After being silent for a long time, Concubine Yu looked at Fan Kinjao and said, "I didn't expect that the crown princess is a sensible person. I think the emperor would be very pleased if he knew about the crown princess's filial piety. In this case, I am not in a good position after rejecting the crown princess's kindness. How about leaving Yuning's body under the care of the crown princess?" Concubine Yu looked at Fan Kinjao with a half-smile. Fan Kinjao readily agreed, "Since the noble concubine thinks highly of me, I am willing to serve." Concubine Yu. Why did this little agree so happily? Concubine Yu looked at Aunt Ying next to her suspiciously. Grandma Ying is also confused. Taking care of the health of the concubines in the harem is no child's play, not to mention that the crown princess is still a person close to the queen, so it doesn't seem to make sense no matter how you look at it. She is taking care of Yuning's promised body. But the crown princess not only agreed, but also agreed happily. This. Grandma Ying was also confused. Concubine Yu always felt as if she was being plotted by Fan Kinjao, but after thinking about it, she didn't know what exactly she was being plotted by Fan Kinjao. However, now that the words have been spoken, Concubine Yu cannot take them back. In that case, the crown princess will have to worry about it. "Don't worry, Concubine Yu, I will do my best." Concubine Yu nodded and signaled to Fan Kinjao that he could leave. The jokes that need to be seen have been read, and the things that need to be said have been said. Fan Kinjao will no longer stay here. Just when Fan Kinjao turned around, he looked at Yuning beside him intentionally or unintentionally. When their eyes met, the smile on Fan Kinjao's lips became even deeper. Yuning's scalp was numb from the laughter, and her heart was beating like it was about to be knocked out of her chest. She asked, how could Fan Kinjao come here specially to see her laugh? It turns out that Fan Kinjao is just a drunkard who doesn't care about drinking. Yuning, who finally figured out what Fan Kinjao wanted to do, felt a bad breath in her chest and her eyes turned black. The most hateful thing is that even though Yuning knew it well, she couldn't explain it to Concubine Yu. Concubine Yu glanced at Yuning, who was turning blue, and told Aunt Ying in an unhurried manner, "Transfer a palace servant from my side and take good care of Yuning and agree." Of course, this person is not only monitoring Fan Kinjao, but also watching Yuning. Mammy Ying quickly agreed, and while helping Concubine Yu go out, she was mentally calculating who would be suitable. Yuning almost laughed angrily when she saw Concubine Yu leaving proudly. There is nothing to be arrogant and proud of, but it turned out that Fan Kinjao had plotted against him. The most ridiculous thing is that even though Concubine Yu, who had been smart all her life, was sold out by Fan Kinjao, she still counted her money. The news that Fan Kinjao went to Yuning's place quickly spread throughout the palace. This news was naturally spread by Concubine Yu. Concubine Yu wanted to let the queen know that even her daughter-in-law would have to sacrifice her life for her. No matter what Concubine Yu planned, Just the fact that Fan Kinjao took over Yuning's body and agreed to her body was enough to make all the princes and concubines jealous to the point of red eyes. The emperor is getting older, the concubines in the harem are all exclusive and coquettish, and the princes are also adults. To put it bluntly, the draft has been stopped by this time. The ministers in the court are not stupid. There is nothing to fight for in the palace now. Why are they still organizing a talent show? Is it because they sent their daughter to the palace to die alone? It was precisely because of this that the emperor valued Yuning's promise to have a baby even more. To put it bluntly, there has been no concubine in the palace for many years. Now that she has a son, the emperor naturally protects her like a ball in his eye. Even the imperial doctors in the palace would have fought for such a beautiful job to take care of the child Yuning promised to carry, but now it falls on the crown prince. Who can not be jealous? Look at this princess, what kind of fate is she? It was really God's chance to gain favor in front of the emperor, so he took the initiative to feed it into the mouth of the crown princess. Especially Pan Yulu and Yan Hanbei, who had always been at odds with Fan Kinjao, sat on the bed with their eyes open in the middle of the night, not even a trace of sleepiness. It can be seen that he was very angry. They just can't understand why Fan Kinjao, the hated person, is so lucky. Second princess, someone brought this to you. The palace attendant opened the door of the palace and handed a small box inlaid with pearls into Yan Hanbei's hand. The box was far from expensive, but Yan Hanbei trembled when he received it. Hunted until the people from the palace left, Yan Hanbei opened the box, and there was only a note inside. Yan Hanbei opened it carefully, his expression uncertain for a long time. After another quarter of an hour, she called a palace maid over, "Go to the queen's palace and pass on the news coming from the palace. Remember to be careful." The palace servants were no better than those who served him, so Yan Hanbo specially gave him a lot of money. Fortunately, the people here are all money-minded. Although there is no master-servant relationship, they all work with money. Soon, the queen heard the news in her palace. Empress Zhengzi, who had just been rejected by the emperor, heard rumors as soon as she returned to the palace. The other princes and princes have not returned yet, and it has been a while since the generals entered the forest. The result is like throwing stones into the sea. There is no movement at all. Empress Zhen 11 knew that it was inappropriate for her to take the initiative to lean in front of the emperor at this time, but she didn't care so much. As you can imagine, the emperor didn't see her at all. The more this happened, the more uneasy Queen Zhengzi felt. They are all an old couple, just like a litter of foxes, and no one knows whose temperament is right. The emperor rarely feels guilty, but whenever he feels guilty, he will appear more justified. Just as it is now. Obviously she wanted to care about her son, but he blocked her out of the door forcefully. Lily saw that the queen's face was not good, so she advised her, "Please allow me to serve the queen and rest." As for the crown princess, Lily was not even mentioned. Lily is trustworthy about the crown princess's character, so no matter what the rumors say, the crown princess accepted the pregnancy for Yuning just to please concubine Yu. She believes that there is a secret behind it. Queen Zhen 11 naturally believed in her daughter-in-law, but now that such news is coming out, isn't it because some people want to see her call Xiao Qinjiao in front of her to question and reprimand her? How can we stop if we don't let those who spread rumors see what they want to see? Now that the emperor is very angry, we must not let Xiao Qinjiao become the emperor's vent. Empress Zhen 11 waved her hands tiredly, "Go ahead and invite the crown princess to come and sit down. It doesn't matter if Xiao Qinjiao is here, she is in a state of confusion right now. If the child is with her, maybe she can be calmer and more comfortable." End of this chapter.